In this live stream, I want to play with the concept of combining a whole bunch of view model composables into one, basically like one composable to rule them all. Because I've noticed that in a lot of my projects, I'm creating, updating, destroying, indexing, doing all of that. And chances are I'm doing all of them, not just one of those things. So it's good to have them separated. So if I only want to do indexing, I can do something like post indexer is equal to use indexer, and then just send through the post. Capital T on that. Oh, I'd have to make that model. But yeah, so if I were just doing indexing, sure, I could just use one composable. But almost always you're using multiple composables at once from VueModel. So indexing, creating, destroying, updating, blah, blah, blah. So let's have a look at how we can combine all of those into one composable. And then I'm going to think about possibly bringing this into core and how that might look. All right, so let's go ahead and make a post model. So I'm going to say hygen module new, and we'll call this a post. And there we go. So now we should be able to pull that in. Yep, so we'll import post from there, control click that, and how about we have a title and we have a body, and maybe we'll have another one called publish just so we can play with a boolean as well. Boolean, which is for whether or not it is published. And we probably want these to be strings or nullable. Maybe the boolean would just be boolean. Yeah, I guess that could be nullable as well. You know what? It doesn't really matter. Okay, so we've got all of that. We're not going to worry about relationships right now. We just want to make this process as smooth as we possibly can. Okay, so next, I'm thinking we'll start with create and we'll slowly build up from there. Create's a good place to start because once something's created, you can index, you can update, you can find, and all that jazz. So I'm just going to add a queue expansion item. We might even just have a button with a dialog. Here, let's do this. I want it to be kind of realistic to something that I do a lot, which is just having a table and a page, and you can create records, you can update records, and all that jazz. So we'll just say when this is clicked, we're going to go ahead and create. So then we could say, for example, post, let's call this a post service is equal to use model is probably a good name for that. That's actually already exists in Vue, so maybe we call it something like use model collection for working with a collection of models. Maybe not the best name, but it doesn't really matter. We just want to work out the concept. So let's go ahead and build that. Put in my snippet for a composable. And I'm imagining that we want to be able to model a form here. So you'd have like a q-form, q-input, and then you would vmodel post service dot create form. And we'd have to say create form because you would also be able to have update forms. Oh, you're very welcome. Elogio. I don't know how to say that. Elogio. You never know because everyone's from all over the world. So we can create, we've got our create form here. That sounds like a function, so I don't like the naming for that. I might leave it at that for now though. And I'm imagining you can say like create form dot title in order to model the title, and then we could have a label here equal to title. All right, that'll do. We're just kind of like stubbing things out for now. And we've now got this use model collection. We'll get that imported. And we need a way to create models. So we'll have to accept it in here. I might just start by saying creator is equal to use creator, and then you need to send through the model there. And I'm going to steal the type for that. So control click, and we can use this generic here. I might even steal that section as well. And there we go. And let's make this multi-line. I like to keep things as narrow as possible. Not narrow as possible, but about this narrow so that I can very easily split my screen and have my editor on the left here, have my browser on the left here. So I do like to keep things as sort of compact as I can. So we'll call this, we get the model class, and that model comes from Pina ORM. So we get that imported. We send that through to the use creator, and now we can say create form is equal to creator.form. And again, I don't like create form because it feels like it's the name of a function, but it's actually not in this case. So yeah, this will do for now though. So if we now give that the post, that should be typed because creator is typed because it also gets the model class. And I should be able to say create form dot, and then title should come up. Okay, it's asking for value. What I might do is wrap all of this in a reactive. This is kind of like what Pina does. And that just means that it kind of unwraps everything for you. So now I can say dot title there. And there's our form. And then we have a button down here, and we'll say the label is equal to create. And let's put that inside of the form. Actually, I like to have it below the form. And maybe we'll just wrap it in a div for now. And I'll end up putting this in its own dialog. There we go. And we can give this a class of full width. We'll add a bit of color to it. Maybe we'll say primary here. And then when you click on this button, we then need to be able to create the resource. So I think just the word create should be fine for that. So creator, we'll map that to creator.create. Okay, post service.create. And we might as well go ahead while we're here and put in like a body section. So how about we say, yeah, body, and you can set the type equal to text area, which is going to make that a little bit bigger. Yep. And then how about we add a gutter here, Q, gutter on the y-axis, and we'll make that medium. And then we'll add filled for both of these inputs. And I think that looks pretty good. So blah, blah, create. All right, that did nothing. So why would that do nothing? Post service.create maps to our create function. Got the form there. How about we have a look at the error log? All right, looks like it worked that time. I just need to refresh the page. So now we go to application. Here's IndexedDB. This is basically like local storage, but on steroids. And we can see that that record was created. And I've got a few other ones that I was creating here. So let's just go ahead and dump all of that. So we're back to square one. And that part of it is done. So now we can create things. We also want to know when we're creating. So we'll say creating is equal to creator.creating. And that might do at least for now. So now we can say loading is equal to post service.creating. And we can put like a fake. If I jump into VueModel.ts, which is where I set up the composables, set up the plugins for them. Yeah, we got a mock latency there, so that should actually work. Whoop, this one needs to say body. Now let's put a capital T on title there. Ba 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 ba. And we're not getting that spinner though. I might just need to do a refresh. Let's try it again. Yep, we get the spinner, and then it goes ahead and creates. So that's working. Now that we can create, we also, well, what would be the next one after create? Probably indexing would be helpful next. I might put the extra effort though into turning this into its own form. So let's create a new file here called postform.vue, and I'll put in the template for that. And then we can say q-form here. No, we can just copy paste everything. Yeah, so let's cut that. And then we'll just paste it on here, and we'll say const model value, we can call it form at this point, is equal to, and we can use define model. And now I can actually pluck in form, which makes it really easy to create typings for a form from VueModel. And then we'll pass through to that the post. So now we get all the typings that we need on the form. Next, this is going to be for model value, so we can easily just VModel that. And this is definitely going to be required. So we can go ahead and save that. Now we change both of these to form instead. And if I do a dot there, we can see the typing gets pulled through, which is kind of awesome. And that's it. We've now got a post form. Let's create a dialog for this as well. Maybe we actually call this, we can probably put all this in one, post form. No, because we want to use this form for the create and the update. Yeah, so we'll do this. Create form dialog.view, whack in a template for that. And am I using augment quasar here? Looks like maybe I'm not. Oh, that's all right. We won't use it in this project. At augment, no, that's all right. So now we can put a Q dialog inside of there. Q dialog. And VueModel will be proxied directly to that, but we'll put inside of here a toolbar and the form. So let's say Q toolbar, and then we'll put in there a Q toolbar title, and then we can call this the create post form. So we'll just say create post there, and then underneath that toolbar we'll have a queue card section, and then we can whack the form in there. So I like to say like const form is equal to define model, and then we can say post form there to get that typed. No, we'll make this a form and send through the post to that form. Okay, and then this is also going to be required. True. So we do have a little bit of drilling here, but it's only 2 levels deep, and I think it actually works in this scenario. So now in that queue card section, we can then say post form, and then we just VueModel that using the form that's modeled on this dialog. Okay, so next up, how about we say q-btn v-close-pop-up. So this is a button that will close the pop-up. Icon mdi close for that, and we'll make this flat and we'll make it round. So, okay, I think that's looking pretty good. I've done a little bit of work without testing things, so let's go ahead and test things now. And maybe we also put the showing of that dialog on this composable as well. So maybe we could, but instead of dialog, we could make it agnostic. So we could say, for example, const show create form. Yeah, let's go with that. And then we'll pull in, we don't need to pull in ref because I've got that automatically imported. We'll set that equal to false by default. And then we can say on the creator, on success, then I want you to say show create form.value is equal to false. So after you've successfully created it, just go ahead and hide that form for me. Okay, so now on the dialog, we probably also want to know whether or not we're creating. So how about this? Create form dialog. I'll come down here and say D props. That's my hotkey for defining props. And we can say creating and make sure that's spelled correctly. This is a Boolean, and yeah, that's it. I don't think we need anything else there. We probably don't even need to assign that to a variable. And then we can come down here and say loading on that button is equal to creating. I accidentally put that in the wrong spot. It should actually be here inside of that card. So q-button, we need a create button at click is equal to, and that will just emit a create. So how about we say emit create, and I'll get that done in a second. But for now, loading is equal to whether or not we're creating. So now we can say define emits D. Do I have a hotkey for this? No, I probably should, shouldn't I? You know, const emit is equal to define emits. I want to use the new syntax, but it hasn't been working for me lately. So I might just try it again and see if it does, see if I can remember it. Something like this, like create, and then you could give it an array. And I don't need any parameters, so I'm going to leave that empty. And then, yeah, here we say emit create. Emit is already defined. Okay, I accidentally got that imported. Sweet. Okay, so now when you click on create, this emits create. And what we might do then is put that in here. So we'll call this create. It shouldn't be create form. Silly naming. Create post dialog. This is something you could totally streamline though. I do usually streamline this component so that I've got like a create dialog component that handles a lot of the props and stuff for me. Okay, so now we can get that imported here, create post dialog. So we get that imported, and now we can VueModel that. This will be fun. So we can then say post service dot. This is where you would then have that show dialog. So let's come in here. Yeah, sorry, show create form. All right, so that wasn't exposed. That's why it wasn't showing up. Now we can say here, show create form. I think this is going to look really pretty. And now we need to be able to model the form itself as well. Did I do that correctly? Yeah, okay, so this we want to name as form. So that means we can do this. We can say v-model, and the form is going to be modeled as post service dot create form. All right, I'm happy with that. Then we can say creating is equal to post service dot creating. All right. How nice is that? So far, I think this API is looking really, really nice. We have our post service. It's got everything it needs to let us know if we're creating, and we probably don't need it on that button anymore. And then when you click on this, we can say post service dot create show create form is equal to true. So that's a lot of code with no testing. Let's see if that works. Okay, so the background doesn't look right in that dialog. That's right, we've got the toolbar inside of the card. That's the first thing. Let's try that. And that might be it. So now we just need to say on this button, we'll give it a label equal to create. Come in there and do that. And how about we say color is equal to primary, and then we'll say class is equal to full width. And we'll probably do a similar thing, I reckon, for the toolbar as well. But this one is going to have a class equal to background primary. And we'll have to give it white text as well so that it looks right. Nice. Okay, so that's all been abstracted away. So we have this really nice page where we've got the button for creating and then the create dialog as well. But everything's still nice and sort of separate. And then we can go blah, 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 create. All right, something went wrong there. Okay, we need to say at create here on that dialog. And again, it's all just sitting there on the post service, and we just call create. And since post service is modeling the create form here, that should work. Let's try this again. Testing, blah, blah, create. And there we go. Looks like that worked. So now we've got creating covered. Let's do indexing next, and I'm going to put that inside of a table. So how about this? We have a q-table component, and I might even put this into its own component. No, not yet. That would be too soon. So now in order to get the rows for that, we would have to say post service dot records is what I think I would call that. So let's open that in the tab next door here. And then in our useModel collection, we now need a way to get the records, and we now need to be able to index as well. So how about this? Let's say const indexer is equal to useIndexer, and we'll send through the model class to that. Okay. And then let's just start from the top and start exposing some things here. I want to expose everything manually so that I don't end up with any clashes here. So I don't want to use a spread operator. We're just going to go one thing at a time to figure out what to expose. Now this is for create, and then we've got another section here that's dedicated to indexing. So index. All right, so indexing is equal to indexer.indexing. I can just map that directly. We want to be able to do the index, so we'll say index is equal to indexer.index. By the way, with create, we probably want validation errors. I'll add them later on. Let's just keep it simple for now. And that might do so far. Oh, we also need the records as well. So we'll say the records is equal to indexer.records. Cool. So now inside of that table, we can smack out the records. And should we make it so that it automatically indexes by default? I think we should. I want to make this composable as similar to what I do in my day-to-day life as possible. And then we will have we'll make it so that you can opt out of what is simple. So if we come in here and we say immediate is equal to true, then that's going to immediately index. So usually that's set to false, but in this, I'll just make it true by default so that without adding any options, it does exactly what I would want it to do if I'm using this in the real world. Okay, so if I refresh the page there, that now does an index, and we can see that our records are showing up. So next we want to see whether or not that's loading. So we've got indexing available to us. So how about on the table we say loading is equal to post service.indexing. And then we want to set a color on this. Color is equal to primary so that we get a nice little spinner thing as it loads. Nice. And I'm going to add a little bit more of a mock latency there. How about we set that equal to 900 milliseconds just so we can see that working for a little bit longer. Yep. Now that create button, I want to put that at the top of the table. So let's tap into that here. And we can say, what's the name of the slot for that? We should get some nice typing here. I think it's top right. yeah, top right. And I'm just going to whack that button directly inside of there and then do a bit of styling on it. And often I like to have my dialogues at the end. So let's do that. We'll whack the dialogue down here. And now we've got a create button sitting in the top right. And let's get rid of the label and let's make it an icon equal to MDI plus so that it's a plus button now instead. And I'll also make it round. I think that'll look better. Yeah. There we go. So now we can just add a new one, create it. And in order for that to show up in the table, yeah, see, this is an interesting one because pagination is built into this. It doesn't automatically show up in the table. And I'm thinking of ways that I can make that a little bit easier. So even though it exists in the store now, this actually filters to the latest request that it had done, which it actually kind of makes sense. You don't want it to, you want to make sure that you don't mess with pagination whenever you create a new record. So I'm still thinking about a sensible way that I can do that. But I'm pretty sure that worked because if I refresh the page, then it shows up there now. And what we might even do here, I don't think this is the best idea, but maybe at least just for now, we can say on success for a create, we'll get the indexer to just go ahead and index again. And that means that it's going to just refresh those records. So if I say here, refresh, give it a body of something, create, it goes ahead, does a refresh, and then you can see it showing up here. Okay, that's all working. Next, we want to be able to work with pagination inside of this table. And I'm going to find a way to make this easy as possible. Do I want to do pagination right now? No, we might actually leave that for a little bit later. Let's do updating first and make this table look a little bit better. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I'll close this down. We're going to focus on the table. We'll create a new file here for the columns on that table. Columns.ts, and then we can say export const columns, and that's going to be a queue table column, and we want an array of those. So let's go ahead and do that. And I think we can actually add some types here, which is kind of cool, where we can say it accepts the post. So now when we give it that array, I think it just gives us some typing, like for the field. All right, maybe I was wrong about this. We might have to declassify that. Declassify. Ooh, I thought that's what I called it. Maybe just turn this into a form. Yeah, okay, that works now. It just gives us a bit of extra typing. Honestly, don't really need it, but you know, we can, so why not? So let's go title. We'll say the name of that is also equal to title. And then we want a label on that, and we'll also set that to title, and I believe that's all we need. So we've got a title. Let's give it a body as well. Body. And then we also want to have the edit button. Edit, and let's give it a label equal to edit. And the problem is it squawks at us now. Really, I want to give it no field at all, but I think the typing needs to be updated for this in Quasar because I should be able to give it no field. I don't know why that would be required because sometimes you want a column there where you're going to custom add that field. Yeah, so I'm just going to ignore that typing. It's probably the only thing I can do here. So now we need to use those columns. So for this table, we can now come in here and say columns. And there we go. And I can actually do this. You can say columns like that. And then say import. What's the fastest way to do this? Columns. Yeah, let's get it imported. Yeah, this is a new Vue syntax where you can basically just say colon, the name of the variable, and that's shorthand for writing this. So that is the same as that, which is kind of cool. So let's jump into those columns now and add some alignment as well. Align is equal to left, but then the edit button is going to be in the center. So let's try that. There we go. And let's go ahead and do that edit button now. So now we can say a template inside of here, and we're going to target body cell, and specifically the cell is named edit. So let's just test that by saying qtd. We will always want to pull in the scope when we're doing this, and then set the props of that td equal to the scope. This just gives that table data cell the extra information it needs to render correctly. So now I can come back here and say ... and now you can see we're tapping into this edit cell. Now I want to be able to click on an edit button. But you know what? Let's actually, so one of the pros of what I've built here is that it's very easy to make cells editable inside of a table. So I might actually go for that strategy instead. Let's just try this and see what happens. I'll show you what I mean. I know a lot of you probably have built something like this in the past. It's a very common thing to try and build. So we can say body there, and we set that equal to the scope. And then we can say q-tr to create a table row, and then we say props is equal to scope there to give the table row everything it needs to know to render correctly. And then we start adding all of the cells in. And we can say the name of this cell is equal to title. We'll create another cell for the body, and then another one for edit. And now we do the same thing here where we pass through the scope. That just gives Quasar the extra knowledge it needs to render it correctly. And now we can tap into each of these cells. So for now, let's just proxy it. So we'll keep, so we'll say scope dot value, I think is how you do that. I thought it was. Oh no, we're at a row level here. So I have to say scope dot row dot title, something like that. Yeah, let's do that instead. This one is just going to be the edit button. So scope.row.body for this one. Let's refresh the page. What have I done wrong? Body slot. Name. The props are being sent down as the scope. All right, let's look for errors in the console. I don't actually know what I've done wrong here. All right, let's look at one of the Quasar examples. Must have just left something out. Body, scope. All the data's being sent in there. Oh, new updates to the docs. So we go Q table here, jump over to the table, and now let's take a look at the scope for a row. Maybe I'll just type in row, trying to find the fastest way to figure out how to do this. Yeah, I can probably just steal one of these examples. Yes, you say slot body, props are directly sent to the row, key, props. Okay, so, instead of name, it should be key. My bad. There we go, that's working now. Okay, that was a silly Luke mistake. Close that out. And now we want to make that edit button. Rather than having the edit button, though, I want to see if we can just edit this in line. That's what we really want to aim for. I think that's the interface that a lot of people have trouble trying to build. And it's one that I always want to build, but I often don't because of the complexities around loading and just other bits and pieces like that. And we've now made that much, much easier with the batch updater. So more on that in a second. Okay, so let's go into columns here, and we'll actually get rid of that edit button. Save it, and then we'll come down to the edit button here and get rid of it. Oh, you know what? We might actually leave it because we'll see if we can implement it as well later on, just so we have both examples here. I think that's a good idea. Okay, so now instead of sending through all of the records, oh no, we'll still send through the records. Just trying to think of the best way to do this. I just realized some changes that I need to make. So currently the batch updater gives you a array of all of the forms. But then if we were to use that, we would lose pagination. So what I actually want to be able to do is iterate over all of these records and then model the forms. In other words, I need the forms by their ID. And then that's going to make dealing with loading and meta harder. All right, so we're going to ignore pagination in this example, and let's just set that equal to all, just so I get the chance to sort of show you some of this cool stuff. Okay, so we'll say const users updater, or we'll call this batch updater is equal to use batch updater, and we send through the model class like that. So now what we want to do is have access to those forms. So we can say batch update here, and then we can say, okay, so this is the key. There's a form in there that we need, an array of forms in there that we need, forms with meta. So then we can say here, update forms, and that's going to be equal to batch updater forms with meta. So we send that directly through, and let's just start with that for now. And for each of the rows here, we say post service. Instead of records, we can now use forms with meta, which is not showing. Oh no, here we go, update forms. Right, but the problem I have then is that those update forms are an array with form in it. Okay, no, that's all right. So we say scope.row.form.title here for that cell. And then here we say scope.row.form.body, because essentially we have a form here that we're working with now. And that still works. But now this is inside of a form that we can edit. This is the cool part. This is where things get exciting. So now we can actually create a Q input there that is borderless. That kind of makes the input just look like any other value. And we can say VueModel is equal to scope.row.form.body. I'm pretty sure we can actually model that directly here. So now let's get rid of that section there. And that's being modeled. All right, and it looks like that's working. So that's updating the form, but then we want the form to be able to update. So as it turns out, we've actually got a feature here in the batch updater that does that, where we can say auto update is equal to true, and then we can also set an auto update debounce. So we can set that, for example, to 800 milliseconds. And now check this out. Let's refresh the page, and let's just set this equal to 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll give that a second to make sure the debouncer gets hit and refresh the page. And that's it. We've already built a table with forms that will automatically update now. And the code looks gorgeous. It's super easy to do. You can literally just model it because this is a form. But it gets even better than that. So we can say, for example, one thing you can do with Q import is just put some text in there, and that text will show up in the top right side. And so you could do something like this. You could show the previous value. Maybe this isn't a great example, but it's still pretty cool that you can do this. I might actually do a pre-tag here and show you what we've actually got available. Scope.row. It's a bit hard to see, isn't it? I thought that would be easier to see. What if I put this in a div? Yeah, so we've got the form there. We can see whether or not that's changed. So what I might do is add an icon, q-icon, and then we can say v-if scope.row.fields.body. All right, so give me the current, give me the body field, and I want to know whether or not that's changed. So then we can do dot changed. Yeah, let's do that. So now if this changes, that icon is then going to show up. So we need to actually give it an icon. Name is equal to MDI circle. There we go. And we'll set the color of that equal to orange to show that that's changed. That's changed. And if I click away and give it a second, it then disappears because it's finished updating. And now you could do something like this. You could change that into a loading spinner if it's loading. So then you could do, for example, or make it green if it's updating. So let's do this. Let's say if it's changed or if it is updating, then I want you to show this little dot. And the color is going to be whether or not it's changed or updating. So if it's changed, I want you to set it, or how about this? If it's updating, I think I'd have to go on the other end. If it's updating, then we're going to set this equal to, oh no, we'll use a spinner instead. That would look better, wouldn't it? Okay, how about this? Let's say if it's changed and it's not updating, then you show this icon. All right, we'll just make it orange. And then we'll have a spinner if it is updating, like a little small one. And let's just see what that looks like. Yeah, something like that. And then we can say v if it is updating. Then I want you to show that spinner. So now we can type in, it shows that it's changed, and when we click out, it shows that it's updating. We don't even need to click out, actually. It's just whether or not we hit that debouncer. That's pretty cool. That is really cool to be able to isolate a field like that, and so easily as well. Like, look at the code we wrote in order to do this. Like, that's ridiculous. So now we can take that input and we can take the same concept here and put it on the title. And you could totally extract this into its own component if you really wanted to. And then on these inputs, let's make them dense as well. Okay, that looks a little bit better. And now you've got a table that's really easy to edit. We might even add some cells on there. So you can say like cell is equal to, what is this called again? Something cell. Just got to figure out how to put the cells in there. Grid, no, it's not grid. Loading. Go past all the ons. Oh man, I can't find it. It's something cell. Q table, and then once we get the cells in there, it'll just look a little bit easier to update. Will look like it can be updated. So cell, yeah, separator. Ha! Separator is equal to cell. I think that'll look better. And there we go. It just kind of feels more updatey. Now we need to be able to delete as well. The delete part is going to be super easy. Let me just check this. New title. And then get that spinner and it's that is so cool. I can't even tell you how difficult it was to build UIs like this in the past, especially in a way where you can easily separate your components. In fact, let's do that now. So this is the really cool thing to me, the fact that I can do that and move table into its own component. So if this all works, I'm going to be super excited. So let's say here, posts table.view, whack in a template here, and we can probably kind of do a split screen thing here to make it easy to build. So I'm just going to grab the whole table, boom, snap that out. I might not pull out the slots though. No, we'll pull the slots out as well, and then we'll just use events. Yeah, that'll make sense. So we'll cut this out. And then we can just find out what is required. So I need to know whether or not we're indexing. I need the update forms, and I need to be able to just send those directly down. I mean, technically this could be a VueModel. Doesn't matter. So yeah, usually props aren't something you can update. So I wonder if VueModel rows is a thing. No, doesn't matter. So now you can come up here and just start passing everything down. So we'll define the props by saying loading already exists on the table. We can say how we want the rows by saying posts is equal to, and now I can just hover over that. Or we might even bring it back in here so I cannot hover over that just to get the typings for it. Yeah, form with meta, and that's going to be an array. So that's what we actually want to accept here. Send the post in. So now we can send those posts in for the row. We might even call them post forms. Whoop. Post forms. Okay, that's not required. We can just put that directly on the table. Get rid of everything inside of here. And we can make that self-closing, get rid of that. Yeah, and this will now be posts is equal to that, just so it reads a little bit nicer. And instead of Q table, that will now be posts table. Okay, so now we need the forms there. That's actually called post forms. Yeah, so that's working now. Loading should get proxied directly to the component. Actually, I'm not sure it will. I think once you define props, you're basically in control of all the props. I always forget these finer details. What's it complaining about? Reading index. Oh yeah, there's lots of stuff in here that needs fixing now. So we shouldn't need that anymore. Columns, let's do that internally. So now we can just import columns there and whack those imports over there. And now we just want to know when this was clicked. So then we can change that to an event here that says at create, that's no longer required, is equal to show the create form. So then we can just come in here and say emit create when that's clicked on, and then we can say const emit is equal to define emit, and we'll just pass through to that. I can use the new syntax because it's working for me now. Nice. Create. I wonder if I can do that without a... You don't even need a string anymore, do you? Yeah, this reads so much nicer. Oh, love it. So now that button sits inside of there, and we've massively cleaned up our index page. Oh, look at this. That is gorgeous to me. And now if we come back over here and try a refresh, I reckon it'll work now. All right. And we can still model things, and we still get that showing, and the updater. So that should say new title G, blah, blah, blah. Yep. So great. This all works. Destroying is going to be super, super simple. So let's come down here and say const destroyer is equal to use destroyer. We send through the model class there. And then we just want to, all we need to expose is this destroy function. So destroy is equal to destroyer dot destroy. And then we want to know whether or not we're destroying dot destroying. And later on, I'll probably build some sort of a batch destroyer just to more accurately be able to track what's being destroyed. Now, what is this currently? Is that, yeah, that's just a ref. So it's not, you can't be destroying multiple things at once. I mean, you can, but you can't show that you're destroying multiple things at once in the UI, which really doesn't matter that much, but it matters enough that I'd want to build a batch destroyer. But that's for later on. So now inside of the table, we build in that functionality, and you can totally imagine how this table could be, abstracted, so that you can very easily create a sort of a CRUD table using these concepts. All right, so now we can say destroy, and that's going to receive an ID of the thing being destroyed. So let's just say ID is equal to a string, I think is how you type that. So now we can come down here and add that table cell. We'll add the column in first. It's called destroy. Destroy. Can I just put the field in anyway so it doesn't complain about the typings, even though I shouldn't need it? Oh no, because you know what? I'm just going to get rid of the more accurate typing there so that we don't get those errors. It really doesn't matter. This is fine. Okay, so we got edit and we've got destroy. We don't really need edit anymore. We were just going to maybe implement it. So let's just put that in as a comment out because we can edit things in line now anyway. And then we can build out that destroy button. So this will be easy. We just need to emit a destroy event. So the name of that field will now be destroy. Let me just space this out nicer. Yeah. And then this will be a q-button. I like to make it a bit understated. And so we could say this is flat, and I like to set the size equal to small, and then the color equal to gray. Maybe like a blue-gray. I just think it looks better. And we'll round it off as well, and we'll set the icon equal to MDI delete. Okay, so there's our destroy button. And now that we've got that, we want to make sure it does something. So what we'll also add in here is destroying, so we know what's being destroyed. Destroying, and that is a Boolean. And let's make that not required. It's actually not a Boolean, sorry. It's actually a string of the ID of the thing that's being destroyed. And that's useful having that as an ID because it means we can say loading is equal to destroying. And if we say scope is equal to scope.row.id. So just check the ID of the current thing. If that's equal to whatever we're destroying, then we'll get a loading spinner on that. Okay. So now we need to make it so that clicking on this does something. When you click on it, we will emit destroy, and that needs the ID of the thing that we're going to destroy. That's not typing correctly, so maybe I've done something wrong there. If I do that, I get a red symbol, but if I give it a string, yeah, okay. It's just not really showing up nicely in my editor, which is kind of weird. But that's fine. We'll send through the ID of the thing that we want to destroy, and let's see if that works. It does not. And that's probably because we're not actually calling the function to destroy it. So we'll come in here and we'll say, hey, when you want to destroy something, see how clean this is all still looking? Post service dot destroy, and we can use the ID of the thing that it sends through. Okay, so now that should give us a destroying spinner as well, which we can send through here. Post service dot destroying. And then maybe I'll just like coerce that to a... Okay, so it doesn't know that this is going to be a string. So we need to use like a false or loose primary key there. All right, I could do that. Get that imported. And it's happy with that now. Can I just send it directly through? Yep, cool. So let's come back here. Look at that. All the loading spinners in the right place. Updated. Shows that it's changed. We get a nice spinner. Let's refresh the page. I mean, this is... I don't know if you guys are getting this, but this API, to me, is just... It's like what I've been dreaming of. To be able to easily send through forms that you can update. To be able to get spinners in all the right places and in all the right ways. To know whether or not... Like, another thing we can do is know whether or not this row has changed at all. So we can say... Let's actually go ahead and do that because it's kind of cool. I think you can just say, for example, border on the left side, and we'll make it 3 pixels solid orange, something like that. I just want to get a border on the left side. Oh. I always get the order of these wrong. I think I've got it wrong there. Maybe it's solid 3 pixels. Oh, really? Border left. Border... Yeah, okay, so solid. 1 reps. Okay, how do I get all 3? So I should be able to go... Oh, man, these are dumb examples. Okay, so it should be 1 pixel solid color. Yeah, okay. So 3 pixels solid. Let's just do red to see if that works. Yeah, I don't know why that's not working. Border left, 3 pixels solid. Yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter. Yeah, it's just not showing up at all. Maybe it's this here. No. it doesn't matter. The point I just wanted to show you that you could easily then show whether or not that row is currently updating. So you can do it on a field level or you can do it on a row level. And the magic comes down to this thing here. So let me get rid of the auto updating for now. So we'll get rid of the debounce and the auto update. And you can actually get some really incredible, accurate information about what has changed. And I've done this in a way that is as efficient as possible. So I can say post service dot, hang on, we're going to have to expose it now. Oh no, we'll just show all the forms. Update forms. Yeah, let's do that. So check this out. Each update form gives you the ID, of course, and the form of the thing. But you also get all this extra information as well. Has this form changed? What were the initial values on that form? Is that form currently being made? So in other words, are we currently getting that form from the backend so that we can make it? Are we currently getting the data from the backend so that we can build out that form? Is that form currently updating? But we also get a lot of that information on a per field basis. So what are the fields? Okay, like title, for example. Has the title changed? Is the title updating? Because if you only change the title, then you'll be able to then know, for example, the body is not updating, but the title is updating. So it's smart enough to basically figure out in detail what's changed. And that goes for the backend request as well. So when you do a backend request, you get a small request with only the things that have changed, rather than sending, the entire model back when you do an update, which is, probably bad practice. So this is good. And another thing we've got, so I'll show you, we've actually got this all in a meta field here. I might even just expose the whole batch updater. Let's do that here. Make it easy to work with. So we can do this. We can say batch updater dot, and now we can access all of the meta in one spot. Oh, no, I didn't want to show you meta. I wanted to show you changed. Yeah, here we go, changes. So the way it works is it puts a watcher on every individual form. So rather than watching the entirety of all your forms, it puts a watcher on this form and on this form and on this form. And the cool thing about that is it can be very smart about tracking changes. So I can now make a change here, and it can say the form with that ID has a body that is now equal to this. So we get this really, really nice tracking of changes. And you can even do stuff like this. If I had AAA at the end there and then get rid of AAA, it's smart enough to then remove that from the changes, because now that this is what its original value was, it's no longer changed. So these little things that are really annoying to implement, that's just all being done for you now. So I'm super, super excited about this project. But yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to show you guys inside of this stream. I wanted to see if we could make a nice centralized place for working with models. And I think we've done that, at least to like a small degree in this video. I just kind of wanted to do a proof of concept. And that's the idea that I'm looking at. So I then want to be able to say, cool, let's see if we can take this post table and abstract it, abstract that concept and do as much of the work as we can behind the scenes. And we can actually, we could actually have a play with that right now. So let's send through, for example, we'll call this the model service. So what do we call this? Model collection. So let's send through a model collection for that. And we'll set that equal to the post service. So I don't know if this would be the best way to do it, because we're sending an entire composable down. Usually that's not considered great practice. I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea in this case, because I want them to be coupled to each other. But now we should be able to get rid of loading, destroying, forms. We could get rid of separator. So maybe we want to have that color by default. You know what? You can actually get rid of everything here. So we can now cut all of this, right? And then we'll change this from post form. Let's just duplicate that. And then we'll call this model table, something like that. You know, we could come up with a better name, but that'll do for now. Okay, this is going to be fun. So now I've taken all of that stuff and I'm going to put it in here. We'll get rid of the duplicates. I've got a few duplicates happening now. And now this accepts the model collection. So we can come up here. We don't need either of these anymore. We accept the model collection in there. And hopefully I can still type this. Yeah, I could probably just say return type of, or can I just send it directly through? Use model. No, I'd probably have to do type of here. Yeah, okay, that actually worked. And we changed this to model. Oh, I actually don't know if it's worked yet. Model table, something like that. Okay, so that typing is still working, which is good. But now, that's all we have to do to get it working. And it doesn't mean we can't make it so that we can still tap into a lot of this stuff and we can still make it configurable. Just because we're passing all of this functionality, all this knowledge down, doesn't mean we can't make it, for example, so that we overwrite loading. We could easily write an API that does that. Or maybe you want to overwrite the color. You could totally create an API that still overrides some of the things inside of this composable and have it still work. So now let's have a crack at this and see if we can turn this into something that's a bit more generic. So for the rows, we'll just say model collection dot, we should get typing, and we do update forms. And then we just change it. Actually, we just do this, Control D all of that, and say model collection, and all of that should just work. And it does. Why isn't it like that? Duplicate. Oh, okay, gonna duplicate in there. We don't need to do these emits anymore, so we can say model collection dot show create form. Yeah, the problem is that's now mutating. Oh, see, this is a rare case where mutating a prop might actually make sense. So I don't know what the sensical way. I think we might want to send this down raw. There's a way we can say, like, you know, it doesn't matter. Let's just get it working for now. So for destroying, we would then say model collection dot destroying is equal to that. And instead of an at destroy, we then find the place where that button is clicked for a destroy. Yeah, there it is there. Yeah, okay, so you'd actually do this instead. You do it directly. And we can give that the scope.row.id. Man, okay, this was surprisingly easy to do. Maybe I'm talking too soon. Loads. We can send stuff in there. Okay, so that update didn't work correctly. I think, oh, that's right. We got rid of the auto updating by default. So that's just because I was showing you something. So we can bring that back in now. So we come in here and say blah. I mean, that's like that's pretty insane. This is the dream for me. And now we can take those columns and we would send those through as well. So you would actually have to send through, hang on, I accidentally didn't copy that correctly. So you would still send through the columns. All right, so that still works. Don't need that anymore. Yeah, and it works. And of course, you could then add all of the concepts for pagination as well. I'm pretty sure I've got it set up so when you create something, the new form is added. So let's see if this still works. Oh, that create button doesn't work anymore. So, yeah, okay. Show create form. That means that this would then have show create form set to true. That might have to do with the fact that it's being passed down as a prop. Yeah, so there are like some bits and pieces about this that might have to be kind of rethought out. So you could just emit create on that. So that kind of needs to hit the parent so that this dialog can know to show itself. And I would want to keep this dialog separate to the table. So that would be, I think, a good idea. And then maybe you would also want some sort of a confirmation for when you do a delete. You could do that as well, of course. And then show create form equal to true. I think that might fix that problem with the create button. Yeah. Test. 1, 2, 3. Create. And there we go. It shows up. This is so cool. Oh, man. So, I feel like I'm so close to the dream. So the next thing then would be adding something like this to augment Quasar so that other people can easily then just use these concepts. And you could even just, like, there's all these little wins that you could get now. So you could say the title of this table by default, of course, you make all of this tappable so you can change it if you need to. And you could say model collection dot, and we'd need to just get the model class out of that. So then you would just expose it. So let's come in here and say, look, give me back the model class as well. So now that that's exposed, I can say dot model class dot entity for the title of that. And now that says posts, and then you would just like, you'd use like a change case. I think I'm using change case. What do we got? So maybe you can make this like title case. Okay, Pascal, okay. Yeah, maybe sentence case would probably make the most sense here. And then I could just wrap that in sentence case. And I think sentence case does capitalize the first letter. Yeah, there we go, posts. And then, yeah, to add another thing. So let's just say we now want to work, imagining this has all been done for us. So imagining we now have a model table. That's part of Augment Quasar. So that's inside of a package. We now have this composable, this useModel collection composable, which does a lot of the work for us. Let's have a look at what it would be like to add just a new table. We'll skip the create dialog part, but just a new table with content we can edit, especially in the context of having something that you can prototype with really quickly. All right, so we say hygiene module new, and let's do this for, maybe you're doing like a video editing, not video editing, like a video lesson platform. So we could call this a lesson. Let's go with that. So we now have a lesson created. So I jump into lesson and we add everything in for that. We don't have to build out a database because the user's computer is the database. And now we can say the title of that lesson. We can have a video URL for that lesson. I would do underscore here. So it's kind of like databasey. You can do whatever you want though. And then maybe like a description for that as well. Okay, title, video URL, description. So now you go, okay, I want to have a page for that. So maybe you jump into your routes directory and then you come in here and you create a new route and then you call it lessons. This is where we put all of our lessons in. So that would be lowercase. And then we would say lesson page is that page name. And then we can just say hygiene page new. And we call this manage lessons page. There we go. So then we can say manage lessons page. So let's see if that's working. And we'll go to /lessons. Okay, so we have that page. So now let's just close everything out. If we go to our manage lessons page, we then maybe add some padding back into here. And we'll keep it really simple and we'll just say, give me my model table. All right, so you import the model table and now this needs the model collection, which is so freaking easy because we just say const lesson model collection is equal to use model collection, and then we send through the lesson. There we go. So now we just say model collection is equal to that. And now we got our lessons model collection. And now, okay, we need a way to create it. Maybe I do just, yeah, I'm gonna have to steal some of the code from the create dialog. Oh well, that's all right. We'll just do this as quickly as we can. So post form, post dialog. Definitely want to find a way that I can streamline this. Forms are hard though. Creating something simple is easy, but the forms get very complicated very quickly. And I just want to make sure I do it right when I solve this problem. So then we call this a lesson form. And then we just change anything post related to lesson. This shouldn't be too hard. You can do a lot of boilerplate here. And then, it's got an... Hang on. Doesn't our lesson have more than that? Title, video... Okay, maybe Vola just needs a quick little restart. Form for a lesson. Yeah, form dot... We're going crazy? Oh, they're all set to null. They're all strings. So title, and then we'll just do, you know what, you only need the title. The rest is just going to work. And you know what, screw this. We don't even need the form. Why don't we just create a blank record? So we'll just delete both of those and we'll create a blank record in the table. So then we'll just say, just like a button here. Or that's already got a create event because it's got a button. So at create, hey, lesson model collection, I want you to just create one. And that should just give me a blank record. Okay, so that also needs columns as well. So we say columns is equal to columns. And this is the stuff that you would expect to have to write again yourself anyway. You don't want it to try and figure out the columns. Or maybe you do want it to figure out the columns. Maybe I should take that back. Yeah, you should never say never. That's what my mum used to always say to me. Description. So we can do description for all of those. Actually, let's copy that. Do a bit of undoing there. Let's just paste description in there. Yeah, just so we got all the data in there. And then we can say columns. We import columns from /columns. So now we got all the columns for that video. Ugh, I know this doesn't matter, but it's going to piss me off. Description should be aligned to the left. Okay, so when we create one, there we go. It adds it on the list. Now, I've messed something up, haven't I? Yeah, this is still coupled because we need to be able to go through every cell. So this would require a little bit of thinking, but just as a first pass of this, how about this? V4 cell in scope dot cols. So how about we call this, we'll just call it a col in scope dot cols. And now we can put it all in here. Damn it, I was so close to getting it all right. I don't know what a col looks like. Okay, so we'll go to quasars table component. We'll go to, luckily the docs for this kind of thing is really good. It's got the name. I can probably use that as a key, I believe. Yeah, okay, so we can say col.name for the key. Send the scope down. For the input, I think the column, yeah, we could probably say for the label of that. You know what, we don't even need a label because the column title works as the label as well. Yeah, this concept would need a bit of work. I would probably actually rather put that component into the columns object maybe, but that doesn't matter right now. So we iterate over all the columns, scope.row.form, and now we want to know the field. I'm just going to use the name and imagine that they need to be matched up just so I can demonstrate this. And now, yeah, so we go col name whenever we want the field. So we don't want this anymore because all of our table cells are going to be created for us. And you'd have to kind of do, I'm going to just do something dodgy for now. Just do a filter here. We'll just say val dot includes val dot name includes destroy, and then say a not to that. So I want to make sure that we don't spit out a table cell for destroy, because we're doing that manually down the bottom here. Oh man, this is not perfect, but it's fine. But it works. So, I had to come back in here and change some things, but this is what you would have had to have done, right? This bit of code here, and let's just go through everything that we did there. I'm not going to include the route because, that would just depend on what you're doing. But we created this module with our generator. So all we did was basically copy paste this adder down and add all the attributes for it. We didn't have to make a database. That's the equivalent of making our database. And if we made changes, we could just wipe everything on our front end code and then do it again, because this is prototyping. And now that that's created, we were able to just pass it through to useModel collection. It does everything it needs to know how to index, create, batch update, blah, 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 blah. It's just sitting inside of there. And because it's got a predictable API, we can send it directly down to the model table. So these two bits of code are all we needed to create something that is an editable lesson. But we haven't lost flexibility. So a lot of the composables inside of, inside of here, you can tap into them and do them individually. So if you're like, look, I want to do something manual for indexing, you could say const lessons indexer is equal to use indexer, pass through your lesson, and now you've got a way that you can, start indexing lessons now. You can do lessons indexer dot indexing, do all the pagination stuff and all that jazz if you want to do something more manual there. Anyway, and that's actually an interesting idea. Maybe we make it in the future so that you can pass in here your indexer. So you can say, I have my own indexer I want to use because I'm using a bunch of includes or doing some manual stuff here. And so I'm just going to pass in my own one, and I want you to use that one behind the scenes. So anyway, interesting concepts, but let's just go back to what we had before. And yeah, now we can easily just create a new one. You can start adding them down. Let me just get rid of that. If you're prototyping, once you've tested the spinners, you don't really need them anymore. So let's go to our boot file and just get rid of that mock latency. We can just go ahead and add some in. This lesson title is, lesson 1, the video URL, and then you just grab some YouTube video URL. So I'm just going to jump into YouTube and grab the first thing I see. Bunch of blue men. I don't know why YouTube's recommending this, but there you go. So you can paste that in there and say some blue people. I might just delete these ones and then just leave that one. This all just works gorgeously. And I can call this like blue people now. And that updates. If I refresh the page, everything is still up to date because it all gets synced. And now you can really just easily build shit and just test these concepts out. So I can be like, okay, and then I would have a component for my video. So I'd have like my Q video component. And let's, jump into YouTube. I'm just going to do that on my bottom screen. Actually, just bring it up here. And get our share link for that. Embed. I'm just going to copy the code for that. And we can just mess around with this concept. And there we go. That's the URL that I need. And we basically get the ID from the video and whack it into there. There's some really cool tools out there for doing this. And then we can just say the source is equal to that. Maybe we have like a selected video, const selected, or selected lesson is equal to a ref. Then we could just send through the lesson like that. And then here we do v if you've got a selected lesson. What have I done wrong here? Okay, so we put that in a template string. And then we just need the video ID. So then we could say selected lesson. Can I just send it directly through there? I think I can. Yeah. So then dot, instead of video URL, we do video ID. Again, we're prototyping. This is so easy now. I just control click on that. Whoops, wrong spot. Just control click on this. I'm like, oh, actually, I want video ID for that. So to video underscore ID and just jump into my columns and then change that to video ID. Don't have to do any database crap. And if you want, you can create a button that makes this easy to do, but you just go into applications and just delete everything in the store, refresh the page, and then you're good to go. We create a new one, and now it's using video ID behind the scenes instead. We just check there's no errors in the console, and there aren't. So, okay, now when we've got a selected lesson, that'll work. So maybe we make it so that at row click, selected lesson, I think you can, let's just console.log the row to see if that worked. Or, you know what, that's probably a nicer way to do this. This would be like an admin thing, so maybe we can imagine the front end thing is here. And then we could say v-4 lesson in lesson collections dot. Okay, oh, how about we do a bunch of cards? Yeah, let's do that. Okay. So Q card section, and then we'll just kind of like whack this at the top there. And then actually maybe we have a Q card section above that, and then we just have the title of the video. So then we can say like lesson dot title. So we need to say v-4 lesson in lesson model collection dot records. So we iterate over all of the records, and then we can say the key is equal to lesson dot ID. So that's kind of cool. And yeah, then we can just take the current lesson's video ID to see if we can display that. What the hell? What's records? Indexer records lesson. That ain't right. Oh no, that's right. Lesson dot title, something like that. Yeah, then we can say like lesson 1, lesson 2, and then they end up showing up. And then let's just put this inside of a div, and we'll class as equal to Q margin top extra large. We'll make this a row. Let's wrap all of these in a div because it makes it easier to display them. So we can do that now, and then just say class is equal to column, maybe like, I don't know, 4. And then we can say Q col gutter medium on that, so they get nicely separated. And then we just want to see if we can get this video to work, this Q video component. So it's meant to have a video ID on the end. So if we jump into YouTube and just grab a couple of video IDs. That'll do. So let's grab that ID, paste it in there. Still says video URL, so I have to change that. That ID, and then paste it in there. Okay, but we're still not getting the video showing up. So maybe we'll do like a full width, and then we can give it a ratio as well. I think it's like, I never remember this. Video ratio. Whoops, wrong screen. Video ratios, like common, yeah, 16:9, that's what I'm looking for. So then for the ratio, we can just say 16 divided by 9. All right, so it's not showing up, meaning it's probably just not working. Am I doing that right? That's the Q video component, right? You just give it a source, props, source. Yeah, I gave it a ratio. Don't really need any of the other stuff. And I think that embed is correct. Maybe it's not. I might have got messed up the embed code. YouTube embed. Ugh. Oh, let's try again. Yeah, they've all gone through. Sure, let's get the embed URL for that. I thought I got that right before. What's this SI thing? I feel like I've never seen that before. Maybe if I save that, it'll format it. Nah, it didn't work. Okay, so we'll comment that out. And it looks like that, the lesson ID, and then it's got this weird question mark thingy mabop at the end. Doesn't seem right that I would need that though. Oh man! Okay, let's have a look at this. Cue video. How do I use you? Alright, so that's how they do it. What makes it different? Embed slash the video ID, and then it's got that on the end as well. Oh, we don't have selected lesson anymore. Oh, that was silly of me. Oh, fool. And there we go. And it's as simple as that. So now we've got a cool thing that kind of shows us, that allows us to add new video lessons. So we can kind of play around with this concept. And then you could say like, oh, I want the user to be able to add notes to the lesson. So then maybe you do something like this, where you say, Hygiene, new, what is it? Hygiene, new module or module new. Gosh, I can't even remember my own thing now. Yeah, and then you have like, maybe you have a user, but then maybe you have the concept of notes. So we do that as well. And then you want to attach that to individual users. So then you could have like a user note, LMNOPQRSTU. So it would actually be note user if you want to get the make it alphabetical. And then you would have user has got, I don't know, a name, which is a string. I might even come back and do this later on. We can just sort of play around with these concepts. So then you got notes, and notes just got a body, which is either null or a string. And then note user, that's where you can do like your relationship, where you'd say, what would you call this? This would be a belongs to, which comes out of Pina ORM decorators. And I just got to remember how to write these now. Belongs to a note. Let's restart TypeScript there to see if we can get that working. Oh, I wrote notes plural, didn't I? Oh, that was a mistake. Delete. Hygiene module new note. That has to be singular. Note. There we go. And you have to do that as a function. And the way we find that is via the note underscore ID. Yes, and you just set up the relationship like this. And just going to steal some code from there. And that's going to have a note ID, and it's going to have a user ID. And then we do the same thing for the user. And then, of course, this returns a note back or null. And then we put the user through there. That gives us a user back, all null. And then this is user and then user ID. And then you would do the inverse of those relationships. Note and then user. So now we can come over here and do the has many relationships. Has many user on note user. Note user. And it finds them via the user ID. And then this would give you back an array of note user. Cool. And then you got virtually the same thing on your note. Has many, note user, call it a note, but instead of user ID, it's note ID. Okay, so that's your relationships now. That's basically a many-to-many relationship. But I like to do it. I don't like to I like to make many-to-many relationships raw. So basically, if I want to find all of the user's notes, I will get all of the note users and then the user off of that. So I'd rather just manually go through that intermediate table. It just makes it easier to model data on the front end when you do it this way. Okay, so that's done. Did I end up putting everything in for notes? So that should have a body, which is null or a string. Let's just double check some of these things. By the way, a lot of this can be generated for you when you use a tool that I built called schema.blue, but I'm not doing that. I'm not using that right now. Maybe I should have in this video, but it's still kind of a work in progress, so I decided not to use it. Yeah, cool. So now you can have users that have got notes, and I might just leave it at that for now, and maybe I'll do like a stream later on today that shows you how to then do this with users that have got notes. So we don't have that anymore. We don't have that anymore. And maybe we could just do this. Maybe we could just say, well, actually, let's try it. Let's say const user model collection is equal to use model collection. Whoops, not use model. Use model collection. And we'll pass through a user there. And then we'll create a note model collection and pass through a note there. And we could also just have a creator then, like use creator for user, oh, sorry, note user. I always get them mixed up. Note user. And then we could just call this a note creator. And then maybe we have like a function here called add note for user, something like that. And then you can put in the user ID, and then you would also need to know like the note's name, for example. So something like note name, which would be a string, and then that would be a string. So we could easily then do this by saying, first you'd have to create the note. Yeah, so you'd say const node. Oh, we weren't naming the notes, were we? They just had a body. So let's just come in here and add a name. Note model collection. Oh no, sorry. Note creator dot create. I'm just kind of like thinking out loud here. And this is the note user creator. So note model collection dot create. And it's going to have a name equal to the note name. All right, here we go. So we can put an async on that. So first you create the note, and you also need to make, and then you create the connection between that note and the user. So it should be easy at this point. What does this give us back? Does that give us back the note? Yeah, it gives us the response. So const create note response. And now we can say for the note creator.create, oh, might have to restart TypeScript. Oh, sorry, note user creator.create. We now have the note ID because we just created it. So response dot record dot ID, and just coerce that to a string just to make TypeScript happy. So that's the connection between the note and the user. Okay, that's actually it. That's all we need to do. Okay, that's surprisingly simple. So we create the note, and then we attach that note to the user. There is one more thing we need to add, which is then the user ID. User ID is equal to the user ID that was passed through. All right, so we got a user model and a note model. So let's just use the user model and we'll create another table here. User model collection. And yeah, then we just call create to create a new user. Gosh, it's so easy. So we want a new user, I just go create. Oh, it needs its own set of columns though. All right. So all the user's got is a name. So let's just duplicate that and say user columns. Lots of great little lessons here about how I'm going to tackle a lot of these problems when I build out the tooling. This has been helpful. Okay, so now we can come back here. And we can send through to there, the columns are equal to user columns. All right, so we got our first user. I'll just call that Luke. We'll create another user called John, so we can easily just like test this stuff out. And so now we got lessons, we got users. We want to be able to associate a user with a new note that we create. So how about this? Let's just create another table for notes now. Do we have one for notes? Yeah, note model collection. And then what would its columns be? Note columns. Note columns. And then a note has got a name and a body. And this just kind of sets up the relationship properly. Okay, so now note model collection, note columns. Cool. Let's put all of this inside of a div and just say like class is equal to, I don't know, maybe we'll make that a row. What does that do? Yeah, and we can say like qcol gutter, probably large on that. And I'll wrap them all in their own div so that if we want to manage the layout a little bit better, we can. Okay, so that's good. Now we can create a new note. Awesome. But really what we want that to do is call our add note function and send through a user as well. So we can say add note for user, and then we need a way of defining the user. So I'm just going to grab the first user. So we can say user model collections dot records, and I'm just going to grab the first one and grab their ID. And then for the note name, let's just call this default ... something like that. And there we go. So let's check if that has been related to the user correctly. And we can do that easily by jumping into application. Here's all of our data. Note users records. And there we go. Note ID, we got a user ID, and that is attaching, that's basically the way that we can attach this note here. I'll delete the other one we created, to the user. And then, maybe we can I think about that later. So then we can start thinking about our like many-to-many relationships and how we can show them in the table as well. But I'll save that for another time. So yeah, that's pretty cool. We've kind of set up a structure and just a bit of testing for how we can input data and all that jazz. And yeah, hopefully this shows how you could then very easily just add more models in. And once you've got a central place to really easily add in all of this data, it's easy to then just start making components and start prototyping. And the cool thing about using VueModel is when you're done with your prototyping and you have an idea of what your database is going to look like, all you have to do is swap out your driver and then match it up with whatever backend you're using. So currently I only support Laravel Orion. That's the one I'm working on. But this driver could be Strappy, this could be Supabase, and then none of this other code has to change. So all of this stuff still works. So this manage lessons page and all these tables would still work, whether or if the backend is Strappy, if it's Laravel Orion, if it's whatever Supabase, it would still look the exact same the way that you use it, and therefore you can easily just change out the driver. So instead of pulling from here, from our key value store in IndexedDB, it would be pulling from a real database. So I hope you enjoyed this one. That was fun to build, and I'll see you in a future video.